Greetings everyone and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm your host Captain Rye, and today's YouTube video comes from subscriber Grozny Ivan, and I've probably just horribly mispronounced that. So for the purposes of this video, we'll just call him Ivan. Ivan is here in the Tier 6 premium US battleship, the USS Arizona, in World of Warships. The map is Trident, and it's everybody's favorite match mode, Epicenter. As the battle gets underway, it is a Tier 6 maximum battle, and Ivan did spawn in just a little bit behind the rest of the team. Fortunately for him, though, not too far behind, and equally fortunate, as a Tier 6 maximum battle, the map isn't insanely huge to compensate for the gun ranges of a Tier 8 battle. Which means his slow boat is actually going to be able to get into the fight. He gets shots out at this enemy cruiser and manages to put the serious level of hurt onto him, and of course that cruiser's got himself in a very bad situation as he's effectively broadside on to a bunch of friendly ships that are not going to let him get away. The enemy team is in the process of capturing a couple of different rings in the Epicenter mode here. The problem with Epicenter, though, is that if you are in the very center ring, you can capture all of the outer rings, unless there is an enemy ship sitting in it, and then you don't capture it. So it makes actually capturing an area kind of difficult, but once you've managed to secure the cap point, as long as you still have a ship inside one of those rings, that zone will remain captured for your team, and you will gain points from it. Ivan lines himself up a nice shot here on this cruiser. He's already managed to put a serious hurt on him by citadeling him once before, and that cruiser is turning broadside on, and it's going to mean a paddling as Ivan sends that cruiser to the bottom, securing his first kill of the game. His team has taken out 2 ships on the enemy team, and that's going to help keep his team in the points lead for the time being. And it's going to help keep his team in the game, because of course, as you see, they're having a difficult time actually capturing any of these points, and the enemy team has secured the inner 2 rings, which is going to give them a points accumulation advantage in the long term. Now, the enemy team has lost their destroyer, so that is an excellent thing for Ivan's team, as it gives them a destroyer advantage, but you'll notice that there was only 1 destroyer per team anyway. There are aircraft carriers in this game, and the problem with that for Ivan is that the Arizona does not have the best anti-aircraft defense. Not compared to the New Mexico, anyway. The Arizona, like all of her US counterparts at this tier and lower, is a pretty slow boat, as I mentioned previously. She's going to have a 21 knot top speed. Her gun handling is actually pretty reasonable, but you're not going to get the same kind of ranges that you're going to get on your Japanese counterparts, and at maximum ranges, your dispersion's not as good as it could be. But you'll notice that you can outfit the range spotter aircraft there, the catapult spotter, that will increase your range quite nicely. You can build this ship like you build the New Mexico and run it with a concealment expert on it, and actually get the detection range on the ship down quite a bit, and usually cause some serious brown alert moments for enemy cruisers when you pop up at a range of 12 kilometers. And they're broadside onto you. The enemy team still holding on to those central cap locations, and Ivan's team really doesn't seem to be too interested in trying to push into the center there. And at this point in time, it's really kind of a good idea to consider doing that, because most of the enemy team, as you see there, is clustered up on one side of the map, and the rest of them are kind of up behind the capture zone and really isolated from the team. The Arizona has really good armor compared to the New Mexico? Well, the New Mexico's got pretty reasonable armor herself. If angled well, she can be a real problem to deal with. However, the Arizona has slightly thicker armor, which means when angled well, she becomes even harder to deal with, a tougher nut to crack. He manages to put more shots downrange and does hit that battleship in the distance there, but doesn't manage a citadel and doesn't do too much damage to him. Now, the enemy team has managed to take out a good number of friendly ships, and they've pulled that total back quite a bit. Ivan manages to secure a citadel on that enemy ship, and his team is still up on ships, but because they've lost so many, and because the enemy team has the 2 cap zones, it does mean that they are now in the points lead. Now, you'll see Ivan here is angling the stern of the ship towards the enemy, but he's keeping all of his guns on target. Manages to citadel that cruiser, does quite a bit of damage to him. And while he's only managed to secure himself 1 kill so far in this game, he's done 100,000 damage. In most of the battles that I've seen in Tier 6 battleships, 100,000 damage is actually pretty damn good. Now, he's moving very slowly at this point, and that's kind of a little bit of a mistake in my opinion. The New Mexico and the Arizona are not fast ships, but they have a reasonable rudder shift time and a pretty tight turning circle, so long as you've got the speed. And both of these ships have the problem that they don't speed up or slow down very quickly, so you definitely need to keep that speed up whenever possible. Gets shots out there. I think he was aiming at the Fuso there, but the Fuso ended up blocking the path of the enemy Cleveland cruiser there, and as his shots come in there, they managed to secure him a 2nd kill in the game by taking out that cruiser. The team scores are now equal, and both teams have lost their destroyers, but you'll see here that Ivan has got himself isolated with only 1 ship for backup, while the enemy team there, they've got a nice wolf pack of battleships that do have more health pushing up here. So he's using the angle of the ship again to force those shots to bounce off his belt armor. And that's going to mean that any damage he does take is going to be easier to repair. Enemy Fuso turning broadside on to get all of his shots out there as Ivan turns broadside on as well. But he manages to secure a citadel, punishing that battleship for turning broadside on, and secures himself his 3rd kill so far in this game. But he's also managed to do over 130,000 damage. Now that the majority of the enemy team has moved out of the capture zone, the remaining ships on his team that were up and chasing those enemy vessels around that capture zone have been able to push in and start capturing the location. Ivan puts a nice number of shots into this battleship, who's also broadside on, but he's a German battleship. That means citadeling him at any range is going to be pretty damn difficult, but he does cause a significant amount of damage and earns himself both the High Caliber and the Confederate Award at the same exact time. Again, Ivan using the angling on the ship in order to avoid taking too much damage, as you hear a lot of those shots bouncing off. But those battleships have got themselves in a bad situation because they're pretty isolated down here now, and there are carriers in the game, and since those are German battleships, and they look like they might be Tier 5 battleships, that means that the carrier is going to be able to get his torpedoes in and cause some significant damage to them. And sure enough, the carrier does manage to set that battleship on fire, hit him with a couple of torpedoes, and undoubtedly cause flooding. Ivan gets shots out there at the New Mexico off in the distance rather than trying to focus down the battleship that's right in front of him. As he gets himself turned around, he takes shots there, knocks out one of his turrets. That's not too bad. Enemy battleship there gets taken out thanks to the carrier's action, burning him to death. The advantage at this point is now firmly on Ivan's team. Ivan does have one of the caps completely captured, but the enemy team is starting to reclaim it. So they do need to work on finishing off whatever enemy ship is still left in the capture zone. Enemy New Mexico up here still kind of giving a bit of a broadside, but you'll notice that that New Mexico is also angling quite heavily. And when you find yourself in this situation dealing with an angled US battleship at these tiers, the best thing you can do is aim high or aim for the bow or stern rather than try to aim for a citadel. You can still do over penetrations and penetration damage on the bow and the stern as well as the superstructure and cause some damage rather than watching your shots simply bounce. But speaking of angling, this battleship in front of him is not angling at all, and that's going to result in Ivan getting lovely shots right into his belt armor. And again, while he's not going to be able to citadel him because it's a German battleship, he is going to be able to cause a significant amount of damage. But you'll notice that he's turning his ship, he's keeping the angle towards this German battleship because he is the direct threat. But you'll notice the other thing that he's done is that he didn't let his rear turrets swing around to the other side. This is something that I see a lot of people do that's a very noob mistake when dealing with the US battleship line. Ivan secures the kill on that with his forward turrets, and now, because he didn't let his turrets swing around, he's got his rear guns ready to go for this New Mexico as he pushes around the headland of the island. And the New Mexico causes a pretty good amount of damage to him as he pushes up there, but Ivan punishes him by shooting into the bow there, causing a lot of regular penetration damage and finishing him off to secure his Kraken Unleashed. There's the enemy battleship that is still sitting in the cap, and he is actually preoccupied with another target, which is excellent for Ivan here because Ivan's pretty low health, and if that battleship wanted to, he could probably drop some hot lead onto him and cause some serious problems. Again, considering Ivan's low health and considering that he's kind of broadside on. Of course, that's when that battleship decides that yes, Ivan is a nice soft target to shoot at and starts picking on him, but doesn't cause too much damage as Ivan slows down and fortunately avoids most of those shots. Enemy aircraft carrier is actually behind Ivan, and we'll see some of him in a little bit, but that carrier kind of doesn't have any planes anymore at this point. But that shouldn't necessarily be assumed, because you never know, sometimes those carrier drivers will keep their planes in reserve, especially while they're being spotted or fighter capped until the enemy CV moves their planes away or finds something else to do. Friendly CV causing all sorts of problems for that battleship up there, and he is coming in with everything. And it kind of makes sense in this respect that he would be doing that, because of course that kind of seems to be the only one that can do anything as far as return damage. Now that battleship is nearly dead, and he does get taken out again thanks to the carrier's action through flooding. And now there's just the enemy CV left, and that CV still being detected, it basically wide out in the open. But here's the problem with the armor piercing on US battleships at this kind of tier when dealing with aircraft carriers. A lot of that is just going to over-penetrate because these carriers at low tier are basically just light cruisers. They don't have a lot of armor. Now the real question is, who's going to get the kill on this carrier, because he's being shot at by two different people. Ivan continuing to put the armor piercing into him while the friendly ship behind him tries to burn him down with high explosive. And it looks like it's going to go to the friendly ship there as Ivan's shots fail to kill him. Still though, 5 kills and 225,000 damage done in a tier 6 game is actually pretty impressive. And you can see how his defensive sailing and continued angling of the boat managed to save him from being killed kind of early on by that 4-pack of enemy battleships. And of course, with a result like this, Confederate High Caliber Kraken Unleashed, that's going to put Ivan top of the team for XP earned at well above 2,600 base XP. Anyway, that's it for today's video, folks. If you liked the video, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and leave a comment down below. If you'd like to get semi-regular channel news and updates, as well as my Twitch live streaming schedule, you can do so by liking and following me on Facebook. If you'd like to become my supporter, you can do so by becoming my supporter on Patreon. If you've got a replay like this one that you'd like to see featured on my channel, you can send it to my email. And, as I mentioned before, if you'd like to watch me play World of Warships among other games live, you can do so by following me on Twitch. You can find my Twitch live streaming schedule posted on my Facebook. You can find the links for all of those in the video description down below. And as always, I'll see you next time. This is Captain Rye, signing off.